what is a vacation without motorcycle maintenance? I mean, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. So, this bike is new to us, and it did not have handguards. So we're trying to put some handguards on that I got off of Amazon. So handguards, in case you ever wanted to know. Do not get the ones that are plastic. All they do is fold over and break levers. Get the ones that have the aluminum bar in them. They will save your levers, and they will save you more money in the long run by saving your levers. And I put that on backwards. Okay, so you have to cut the grips off, and then this has an insert that goes inside the bar and screws down. And then you have to figure out where it hits up here on your bar and get all of that worked out. I kind of like these. A lot of them don't have this little two-piece adjustment up here on the end, even though I got it on backwards. I think it will be nice eventually.
Eventually.
Razor knife. Master Force, Menard's finest.
Spend big money in the night.
And on the left hand, since it's not the throttle hand, you can just shave it right at the end of the bar. On the other side, you have to make sure you get enough clearance for the throttle tube to not hang. Here's the inserts. You can see they have a wedge. And that wedge drives up inside of this ferrule that's cut, and that expands on the inside of the bar. These bars are actual dirt bike bars. They are thicker walled than the TTR 230 up there. The factory bars on the TTR 230 are really thin walled, and so you actually have to have another spacer in there, and then the first time you drop your bike hard, you go and you replace your bent bars with these.
Oh my gosh, I think the GoPro tripod is drunk.
Of course, we have to have a side project all the time. So
The side project to the side project.
we have the main project is the carburetor on this bike, but we're chem dipping it right at the moment. So then we decided to use the time to put the handguards on. But then I found JB Weld in the toolbox. Wow, you are drunk.
I told you.
JB Weld in the toolbox, and when we aired this up this morning, we had a leak in one of the welds. So we're gonna try to JB Weld it because we don't have a welder on it. Right there. Okay. Perfect. JB Weld plate.
Cardboard box.
Zip tie.
JB Weld spatula. Zip tie. Mix until it's all uniform color. Super zoom that little bitty hole.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the tanks are in good shape. So I'm going to try to really push it into that hole.
To the side project.
To the side project.
Is this side project kind of complete?
It is.
So it dries, yes.
Okay. Done.
Done.
Alright, so I couldn't get this to expand. So I'm putting a tiny bit of grease on the wedge nut. And hopefully that will allow it to slide in there easier. Okay. Now, so putting a little bit of dab of grease on there allowed the wedge nut to suck in there and expand it. I think it was getting bound up before and it wouldn't expand. So we just get that snug, and then we gotta figure out how we want this to go. I think these are universal for can't remember, 7/8 bars and an 1 1/8. So an 1 1/8 bars are like these. So these are 1 1/8 where they actually mount to the bike, and then they taper down to 7/8 as they come out. And so these mounts would fit on bars like this. And to get them to fit on a regular 7/8 bar, they came with these plastic inserts that go in there. So, blocked my shot. Sorry. Now, I'll pretty this up before we get ready to tighten it down. And I'll also take everything back apart one bolt at a time and put high tack on it because we're going to be actual thread lock. Okay, now the question is, can we get this into some configuration There we go. That's looking better. Then you think too much. Okay.
That's our timer.
I was gonna say, is that
That's our
song on
timer?
a timer?
Yep. Back to the
I
other
like
project.
it. I like it at all. Yep, back to the other project.
Ooh, wait, you only put one on.
What the timer's up?
We gotta jump projects.
Okay.
It's just how we do things.
Okay.
This is my first time trying Kim dip. So I took my entire carb and dunked it in there. I didn't take the bowl off or anything, I just dipped it.
Should you have gloves on? Good question.
Warning, contains heterocyclic amine whatever. Avoid contact with eyes and skin. Yeah, probably.
Oh my god.
The outside of the carb doesn't need to be clean, but I figured since I dipped it, why not? I'm just activating. So when you pull the throttle, what you're doing is you're opening that slide to allow air to go through from the air box into the intake of the engine. And as it does that, there's orifices all over that mix the fuel in the bowl with the air coming in the correct ratios for the throttle position that you're at. They're a little bit like black magic that way. And the fact that they have all these overlapping areas and jets, that one for pilot, one for main, one for, we have an idle air screw mixture here. Have I'll think of it a second, a fuel pump here that actually squirts fuel directly into the intake of the engine to make it run rich right when you crack open the throttle. So all kinds of different things happening inside of a carb, and if any of those orifices that are designed for a specific diameter, and they're tiny, if any of those gets corroded or varnished up with poor gasoline or gasoline that sit there and dried, then that portion of the throttle response doesn't work. And that's what I was running into, is it would idle fine and it would run wide open fine, but going from idle to throttle, it would bog down and sometimes even die on me. And so I was constantly either having it die on me, or I was revving it and just using the clutch to slip the clutch. So I was trying to get it to where it wasn't doing that for all week out here. Wonder if this thing tells us how to clean the residue off of here. Read the directions after. Last resort.
Read it before.
Okay. It says... Nope, that's not it. Directions. Disassemble carburetor or throttle body as necessary and place into included basket. Submerge basket in Kim dip and allow to soak 15 to 30 minutes. Remove products, parts, and rinse with water. Surprising. To clean, considerable buildup, allow us longer soak time. To remove extra heavy carbon, allow to soak overnight, rinse with water, and clean with a wire brush. If necessary, do not soak coated or sensitive aluminum parts over 4 hours. Cast iron and low alloy steel should be coated with penetrating oil. Easy does it after rinsing to prevent flash rusting. Won't have to worry about it. It's all either magnesium or aluminum. Get with me. For best results and longer, cleaner life, remove loose dirt and excess grease before soaking parts and Kim dip. And here's the little basket that they're talking about. But since I just soaked my entire carburetor. Alright, taking the bowl of the carb off, and that will expose the jets. Ooh, wow, that is pretty. That stuff worked good. Huh. How about that? Okay, so this is the bowl. This typically fills up with fuel, and then it has this overflow so that if your float valve, which is right here, is screwed up, it just flows over here out the drain and drips onto the ground. Okay, so this is your main jet. So it has a needle that's attached to the slide so that, here, maybe I can show you. So that needle right there, ooh, that's dirty. So this needle also is tapered in such a way that it allows more air and fuel up through this tube right here, and it allows air in through the main jet. And when the fuel or the throttle is all the way closed, you have a tiny gap there, and that's all the air that gets through to your engine. And it this needle goes down and seals into this air jet to keep fuel air mixture from coming up and keeping it from getting too rich. So then when you're at idle, you have this jet right here and that jet right there, and I don't know which one's which, but those two are in the idle circuit, and they are responsible for that idle and immediately off idle throttle response. So I'm doing as they suggested and rinsing everything in water. This guy's just getting dunked. And it changed the color of the water, so that's probably a good idea. Now we're gonna let it dry. We're gonna go eat lunch. Okay, we had lunch. While we let the carburetor dry, we'll probably leave it a little bit longer. So we are moving back to this. We'll try to get the other side.
I was gonna say, you want to dry fit this side before we do the other?
Yeah, we'll do that. So now the grip is not attached to the handlebar itself. So here's the handlebar, it's not moving. There is a plastic tube inside of here called the throttle tube. And so you need to make sure that your handlebar, or not your handlebar, your hand guard doesn't catch on this and leave you at whiskey throttle. So we are going to take our knife, carve out a little bit more of this. You can see it starting to delaminate right there. That's from being dropped in the dirt probably. Either that or it can get glue all the way down. So now you can see that it's dragging a tiny bit, but I think it'll be fine right here. We're just barely tight here. Okay, so we're kind of make sure that they just look decent, and that on the bar ends we're tight, but not so tight that the throttle doesn't work. When you grab in here, these don't have to be perfectly in line with up here. You just want these, your levers, where you're comfortable with them, but somewhere inside of the aluminum, so that if you have an impact, and these will take a lot of abuse and not break your bar ends. Cool. Okay. All right. So we rinse this in water. We let it dry for a bit. We should be good to go. And it's all pretty and clean. Here's my gasket. It has a little groove in the float bowl itself. Sometimes you can get these to stay in. Other times you can take a little bit of grease or high tack, either one, and get it to stick in there with stickiness. Uh-oh. Where did my little plunger go? Okay, so here is that fuel pump that I was talking about, the throttle pump, and it has to go on at the same time that the carb bolt goes on. But I need that to go into that boot. It literally just pushes down in the diaphragm inside of that lower deal. Okay, so check and make sure your gasket's in all the way around, your O-ring, and my pump cylinder is there. So now when you crank the throttle, that pushes down, pushes on this plunger, squirts gas right into the throat. I know this guy needs to go back in. So this has a stack of O-rings and such, and even inside of here there's... Alright, so here's the bike. Here is the air intake. The carburetor sits in here like that, and then here is the rear air boot. It goes on the air box back here and back in through there. That's the part that is like super hard to get the carburetor fit in there and then all of this stuff on. So I'll turn you over to Dan and we'll see if we can't video some of this before we run out of space. All right, so the throttle goes on the right-hand side of the bike. So we're gonna do that. We poke our vents down here and we'll route them later, because we might pull them out while we're trying to get all this done. It's like the horseshoe puzzle. Once you figure it out, then the next time you still can't do it. Okay, that wasn't too bad. All right, so I got it into the front boot. So now I find it easier to actually take these guys, these are the clamps that clamp the boot on, just take them off from the very get-go instead of just loosening them. This is the upper engine mount for the DRZ 400E, and there's two plates here actually. They used to be one on this side and one on the other side. You definitely can't get this carb in with both of those plates on there without undoing it every time, and I got sick of undoing it every time, so I just stacked both plates on one side. I'm not doing major motocross on this, so I figured that was plenty stiff enough for what I was doing, and it allows me to get access to this easier. So this is what I found works the best. I have one of these, the front one facing down. You can't put it up because it interferes with that, and the one behind it facing up, and that allows you to get your screwdriver in there on both of those. So that's what I found works best. So this is the hardest part of reinstalling this carb, and that's getting this rear air boot back on. I used to try to do it without taking the backside off, and just it's a nightmare. What I found works best is to just take the backside off right from the get-go, fold that like a taco. I put a little bit of grease around the lip of that to help it slide on. You just fold it like a taco and shove it in there, and then the bad part is now you have two ends that you have to try to get on. One on the back side of the carb. Go ahead and tighten the front side of the carb up so that you're not fighting it at the same time. And that was like one of the easiest times I've ever done that. Now it's just a matter of putting these back on again. Take that. This side has a captive nut on it, so I'm going to feed it around to where it will be on bottom, and then I can screw that in. And I'll do the same on this one. It's bigger, but I'll put that captive nut around to where it's on bottom because I have more room on bottom.